very special Wednesday edition of Horseshoe FAQ. I am Larra Overton, joining you from the Colts complex inside the Huntington Bank studio. Matt Taylor joining us from his home office because he's cranking away. You know, we know that the short weeks are tough on the staff, tough on players, tough on the coaches. They're also tough for the radio broadcast team because you're cramming in a week's worth of info into about 3 days. So Matt's been going on probably like 3-4 hours of sleep. He started working on this Tennessee-Indianapolis matchup on Sunday night immediately after the loss to Baltimore. Mate, it's going to be a good one. You got everything on the line when you're talking about the lead in the AFC South for this Thursday night matchup. We will answer all of your questions here for the next 10 to 15 minutes or so. A reminder that the coverage of the Colts at Titans begins 5:30, 93.5, 107.5, 1070 The Fan. That is where you can catch myself, Matt Taylor, and Rick Venturi, along with the rest of the radio broadcast team. The game will be broadcast on Fox, nationally televised primetime game. What are you looking for out of the Colts, Matt? Because we know they have that bitter taste in their mouths coming out of that loss to Baltimore.
Well, first of all, you're so dramatic. I know it's a short week, but we're not. Listen, at the end of the day, we're talking football here. We're getting paid to talk about the Colts, and we're not digging ditches here. Like, this is, at the end of the day, it's not a job. So, yeah, it's tough, but listen, nobody should feel sorry for us. We get to talk ball, so it's all good. No, but you're exactly right. Let's go. A Thursday night game. First of all, it's a primetime game. It's the only time all year the Colts are going to be under the lights on a national scale.
Well, at least for now, with the way the schedule's changed so much, I guess anything could happen. But at this point in the season.
No, you're right about that. Hopefully, we get, a bonus game later in the season as far as that goes. But, it's a huge game. It's a division game. The first place inside the AFC South is up for grabs. The Titans are 6-2. The Colts are 5-3. If the Colts can win this game, all of a sudden they go from outside the playoffs completely to maybe the top 4 seed because they would be in first place with a record of 6-3, and they would hold that tiebreaker against the Titans head-to-head, which is so big because it looks as of right now, I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves here, but it appears as of now it's a 2-horse race for that AFC South championship. So these head-to-head matchups are going to be so big. You're going to have the Titans coming back to Lucas Oil Stadium in 2 weeks, the Sunday after Thanksgiving. So it appears right now the Colts' best chance to make the playoffs is winning the AFC South. The reason I say that is they've sort of stubbed their toe a little bit along the way as far as their wild card stock is concerned. They're 2-3 against AFC competition, and they've lost direct head-to-head games against Cleveland and Baltimore. Those two teams look like they're going to be jockeying for position as well later in the season for a wild card position or a wild card spot, seed 6, seed 7. So, yeah, needless to say, this is a giant game for the Colts. Got to get this one. I think it's big to come back on a short week, beat a really good team, and as you said, erase some of that bad taste or get some of that bad taste out of your mouth when you came up short against Baltimore on Sunday.
A reminder to submit your questions right there. We will be debating them, discussing them over the course of our Horseshoe FAQ conversation. A number of questions in regards to the Colts defense. One of those comes from Lance, and he says, will we expect to see Kamoko Toure this week? Matt, I know that you talked earlier this week with Chris Ballard, and that was a big topic of conversation between the two of you on Monday night.
Yeah, I asked him about where Toure is as far as his development on the practice field, came off the PUP list. And they have that window to bring him off PUP and put him directly back on the active roster. If they don't, he'll go on IR the rest of the season. And Chris said flat out, it probably won't be tomorrow night. I think the last case or the last game that he can come back and be on the 53-man roster is a week from Sunday, coming up against the Green Bay Packers. So I think, if I'm not mistaken, if it's not that game, then Kamoko will go on IR the rest of the season. But I don't think it's going to be tomorrow night, according to Chris.
It's just too quick of a turnaround, really, when you talk about this week. You have really just Monday and Tuesday, and those aren't full practices. You shift to more of a walkthrough format because you're still trying to get healthy and recover from, just a bruiser of a knockdown, drag-out game. It was like a heavyweight bout against Baltimore. So that is one thing that you have to take into consideration. You also have to take that into consideration in regards to Jack Doyle, who's in the concussion protocol. So it simply
Yep.
seems like there's just not enough time to get Jack Doyle healthy, back, and active against Tennessee. So it looks like it'll be another week for him as well. Continuing with our conversation here on the Colts defense, Grant asks, over under on 100 yards rushing for Derrick Henry. I believe, Matt, that Derrick Henry is the last guy who has achieved a 100-yard game against the Colts defense, and it's been a while.
Yeah, he's the only guy to go over 100 yards, a single back going over 100 yards since Matt Eberflus has taken over as defensive coordinator for the Colts in 2018. Henry's the only guy to do it, and it wasn't even close last year, unfortunately. He had 26 carries for 149 yards, really got going in the second half and ripped off some big runs and kind of sealed the Colts' fate late in that game. It was a 31-17 win for the Titans last year, and I think that was the first time, if you remember last year, the Colts played the Titans in week 2. That was still a Marcus Mariota-led team on offense. You have to fast forward to week number 13. That was the first time the Colts had seen Ryan Tannehill and a healthy Jonnu Smith and a healthy Derrick Henry all together. And they came in and they spoiled the Colts party. That was the weekend after Thanksgiving. And so they really did a nice job running the ball downhill against that Colts defense. But here's the thing. This is a really another great test for the Colts defense. They're third in the NFL at stopping the run, and they have absolutely risen to the challenge every single time this year. They played some of the best rushing offenses in the league. The Vikings, they hold down the Browns. They did a great job, all things considered, in the rushing attack against the Ravens last Sunday. I mean, Lamar Jackson and company only ran for 110. So I don't think there's any reason to think why the Colts won't do a good job of limiting Derrick Henry. If he's obviously, you want to set the benchmark much lower than 149 from last year. If he's somewhere around 80 to 90 yards, I think, again, that's a number you can win with. Kind of saw him off, take out his legs, take out the running attack, and thus also taking out play action from Ryan Tannehill, because the Titans are maybe the one team in the NFL using that pro-style offense that uses play action more so than any other team. They really rely on the play action pass because the run for them sets up the pass. So if you make them one-dimensional in this game, that'll bode well for the Colts. Shut down A.J. Brown on the outside, Corey Davis. It should be a good day for the Colts offense if you start first and foremost slowing down Derrick Henry. But that's obviously way easier said than done. The guy's an absolute freight train, 6'5", 260. I mean, he runs like a defensive end in terms of like how powerful he is. So it's a major challenge, and there's no doubt that, there's really no wondering why he's one of the best backs in the NFL and a guy that right now is by far the leading rusher in the AFC and second overall in the NFL in rushing.
And a guy who you don't want to catch a stiff arm off of, as we saw earlier
No.
this season. You do not. Talking now Colts offense, a number of questions in regard to rookie receivers. We have a question from Grant. He asks, expectations for Michael Pittman a few games post-surgery. You saw Michael Pittman certainly much more involved last week, and the ceiling is very high, and he is, that complementary receiver, that complementary target in terms of being that bigger body that you need to diversify some of those weapons for Phillip Rivers.
Yeah, I thought he's looked good since coming off that compartment syndrome in his leg. He had career-high 4 catches, over 50 yards the other day against the Baltimore Ravens. So he's slowly working his way back in. So I'm really excited about his potential inside this offense. Get him going. The Colts need to find, I think, just a couple of go-to guys. We talked with Frank Reich about this. We've talked to Chris Ballard about this. It's great. Again, it's like a double-edged sword. It's a catch-22 where you love to spread the ball around to 8 or 9 guys a game that are catching passes. But again, in crunch time or when you need to make a play, it's nice to know that, hey, this guy I know on the outside or this guy in the slot's definitely going to win their matchups, and we can go to this guy because we know he's going to make a play. So I think Michael Pittman is emerging in that category. You talk about rookie wide receivers. I'm also really excited about DeMichael Harris. Kind of that gadget guy. And I don't really mean to demean him by saying that, but I love the dual threat that he poses, being able to run a jet sweep or catch passes on the overs or the crosses, sort of like what Paris Campbell was doing inside this offense. So he's got a lot of potential, and he's here to stay now. As we know, he was activated off the practice squad to the active roster. He was up and down earlier this season. They can't do that anymore as far as his transactions. So he's going to be on the 53 now, and I'm excited about what he can do the rest of the way.
I was speaking with one of our scouts who was the one who was scouting DeMichael Harris in his college career, and he was talking about that versatility comes from the fact that he was actually asked to go from receiver to running back in his college program there at Southern Miss. It's so impressive, that versatility that he has, that adaptability that he has. He is certainly a really exciting piece for this offense, and that brings us to another question in regards to rookie receivers. Desmond Patton. Brent asks, why is Patton always inactive, yet practice squad players are getting snaps? I think part of it is DeMichael Harris has been so impressive in the multiple things that he can do, the multiple ways he can be utilized. Then you had Darius Fountain, who had previously, he's been here for a few seasons. He had established himself really well throughout training camp, being really reliable. He's that bigger body as well that you were needing in this offense. So what do you think this means, though, for Desmond Patton and the outlook for him?
Yeah, I wish I had a really good answer, because I don't know. I don't know what the weight is on Patton, because it appears there have been windows, there have been opportunities that it might make sense just for people like us. Hey, this might be a good chance for Patton to be active, but it just hasn't happened yet. I think it's sort of a situational thing, if I have to guess. I think it's more of a numbers thing. Like, hey, today we need a slot player. We need a guy that can give us the elements that DeMichael Harris can bring, what they're losing with Paris Campbell. So he kind of more fills that role more so than Desmond Patton. But I talked to Frank Reich about this. This was actually a fan question a few weeks ago on Colts Roundtable Live, our Monday night radio show with Frank. And he said that Desmond's been doing great inside practice. It's not like this is a punishment or anything like that. He made the team when a lot of people thought it was a numbers game where he might be on the outside looking in during training camp. So he's been here the entire time. He's doing great on 50-50 balls. He's being way more physical. He's assertive. He's aggressive out there in his route running. So I think the ceiling's pretty high on Desmond Patton. But Frank said that his time will come. But I think we're all just kind of excited and anticipating when that might be. But he's a type of guy, character-wise, that when he gets his chance, I think he's going to seize it, and he's definitely going to make the most of it. But he's one of the guys that we're just still kind of waiting on to this point. We don't really know why for certain he hasn't been able to kind of crack that code and be brought up to the active roster.
When you talk about spreading the offense around in regards to the Colts receivers, you can also say that about that running back room, running back by committee with Jonathan Taylor, Jordan Wilkins, and certainly Nyheim Hines as well. And Rudy wants to know what would need to happen for us to see Taylor take that workhorse load. Matt, I think part of it really is that you like spreading it around. You like kind of keeping defenses guessing about where this ball is going to go, who you're going to bring in there, because there is a really nice change of pace with Jordan Wilkins. And then also you have, for Jonathan Taylor, having that fumble, which was incredibly costly. You really just need to see more consistency out of him. I mean, the rookie taking on such a huge workload, such a primary role with the loss of Marlon Mack. You expect that it's going to take him a little bit of time to feel completely confident in that workhorse type of role.
Right. Now, if the question is what's it going to take for him to take over a game or be that bell cow running back where he's getting 20 to 25 carries per game, I think I think the game dictates that. I mean, if you go back to Cincinnati, you're down 21-0 early. You're back and forth big time, especially there in the first 2.5, 3 quarters with Detroit. So you're not pulling away from them. Obviously, you played from behind most of the second half against Baltimore. So in order for the Colts to be able to rely on the running game and to be able to kind of grind a game down, they're going to have to get up early and be in a position in the second half where they can chew up clock and really kind of control the line of scrimmage with the ground game. So I think it's just about the flow of the game. And as you said, unfortunately, Jordan Wilkins has really played well the last couple of weeks, and they always kind of go with the hot hand. They're honest about that. It's whoever has a better feel that day or whoever has a better running style for the defense that they're facing. As we talked about, Jordan Wilkins is a slasher. He's a north-south guy. He sees the hole. He needs tiny creases to eke out 3 and 4 yards a carry. And I still think you can say this about Jonathan Taylor. It's not a slight on him because he's fantastic coming out of Wisconsin. But at the end of the day, Larra, we talked about this incessantly. No OTAs, no preseason games. He's still learning. he is still learning. I mean, for again, how a Doak Walker Award winner, third all-time rusher in the history of NCAA football. This is the NFL. There's still a learning curve for guys like that, and so I know a lot of people are down on Jonathan Taylor with the fumble and hasn't been that guy that makes this seamless transition where he's running for 100 yards every game. I think 2 years from now, when we're sitting here talking about, in 2021, 2022, Taylor's going to be in the top 5 in the AFC in rushing, and we're going to put this conversation to bed. I think he's going to be that good, but it just takes a little bit of time to kind of get up to speed with this level of professional football, behind the guys he's running behind with that offensive line, and just kind of learning the nuances of the game that you only really gain by experience. And
I hope when we're sitting here in 2 years, we don't have to be still sitting on Zoom doing interviews and conversations. I hope we're all back together, able to go, back into the locker room and get those type of conversations.
I hope cabinet is not my studio.
But it looks lovely. We only have a time for a couple more questions, but want to certainly get. What is this? What do you have? Tell me what we have in the backdrop. Joanna Gaines, what do you got?
I got a picture here. This is my brother-in-law. We're at a baseball game. And we got a Pottery Barn thing right here. I don't even know how to describe this. This was, I found this.
It's probably a wedding gift or something, maybe. Yeah.
I dug that up, and so just some knick-knack stuff that my wife is.
I got a flip card and I got a game release here. That's all the accessories that I have that I can show, and a coffee mug over here. Okay, time for a couple more questions before we wrap things up and let you get back to redecorating for your next Zoom interview as you switch everything up behind you. Question on Phillip Rivers. Now let me find this. Okay, Skylar, how much trust do you have in Phillip Rivers and why? Now you have to keep in mind, despite the offense, not getting into the end zone in that second half against Baltimore, Phillip Rivers was coming off back-to-back games of 3 touchdown performances. Where's your confidence right now in the QB?
I mean, it's there. I mean, it's never gone anywhere. I mean, I think if you take the question kind of big picture, I think Thursday's game is really big in the sense that there's a perception, at least here in 2020, that Phillip Rivers and maybe to a bigger degree the Colts themselves, they can beat the teams they're supposed to beat. They can beat, quote unquote, the teams beneath them, the teams that are not as good as the Colts. But the Colts aren't able to beat the teams on equal footing or perceived to be among the AFC's elites like Baltimore, maybe to a certain degree Cleveland, and obviously Tennessee falls in that category tomorrow night. So I think this is huge for Phillip Rivers to not necessarily bounce back, but continuously prove that, hey, this move that the Colts made in the offseason was perfect for what they want to be here in 2020, be efficient on offense, and beat a really, really good team on the road, in their place, on prime time, under the lights. I think that would go a long way in terms of the psyche of this team, but then also just, the standings, winning, being in first place, having that tiebreaker over Tennessee, and being in a really good spot to kind of take care of business the week after that against the Packers. And then you finish up the meat grinder of a month in November playing the Titans again. So we talked all along when the schedule came out that the month of November here was going to really dictate, how good this team was, or tell us how good they were, set themselves up for playoff football in the months of December and January. So far, so good, in my opinion. I mean, I know they lost to Baltimore, but I think that game proved that the Colts are good enough to beat teams that are in the upper echelon of the AFC. Obviously, they have to play better. They have to play much cleaner than they did. You can't. That third quarter was just disastrous. You can't give up the ball. You got outgained 197-1 in the third period. So I think Phillip Rivers will play his efficient brand of football. Everything's going to be on time. And one thing I'll say about Phillip Rivers, and Rick Venturi alludes to this all the time, he's done a much better job since that Cleveland game when things break down, not forcing things, being okay with throwing the ball away on the sideline or taking a sack, which just doesn't happen this year. But from a mindset standpoint, that's what he's been doing a much better job of here lately, of just living to play the next play. A punt is not the end of the world, but what does hurt you, obviously, are those interceptions and turnovers, as Baltimore had 14 points directly off turnovers, but really that number was 17 when you had the turnover on down late in the game. They don't even have to get a first down to kick a field goal in the fourth quarter. So you know where I'm going with this. You have to be much better, cleaner, efficient against this Tennessee defense that's not as good as Baltimore. So I think there's a chance to put up some points on Thursday night.
Grant asks, how about keys to third down as the Titans may be figuring out their bad third down D?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I don't want to take anything away from Tennessee because they just flat out went out and did it. He's alluding to Chicago only going 2 for 15 on third down on Sunday. But again, we saw Chicago. We've seen them on tape. We've seen them go up against Tennessee on Sunday. That is just not a good offense. I mean, quite frankly, that is not a good offense. So I think those numbers are a little bit skewed based on the opponent. Still, for the season, you're talking about a defense that's given up over 60% completion percentage outside of Sunday. I mean, that is historically bad. So you have to be able to do a good job of keeping the ball, maintaining possessions, and being good situationally, not only on third down, but stay good inside the red zone. The Colts, as we talked about 2 weeks ago, they're now 8 for their last 9 on offense inside the red area. So those are 2 key parts to the game plan on offense that have to be successful in order for the Colts to win coming up tomorrow.
Couple of other key parts that you want to note, the fact that T.Y. Hilton and Mo Alley Cox both practiced. They were both full participants in the practice session, the walkthrough session. So that's encouraging as you see that turnaround on short week to potentially have T.Y. and Mo back into the mix. Again, we start at 5:30 tomorrow on a Thursday evening. We talked about it. It's the only time right now the schedule has the Colts in prime time. So I know that I'm going to get a nap tomorrow before we kick things off at 8:20. You probably don't have time. You're out there crunching away. But the coverage, 5:30, of course, on 1070 The Fan, 107.5, 93.5, and then the TV broadcast on Fox. Yeah, what does your day look like for a primetime game? Do you get a nap in? Because you're up with the little ones at like 5 a.m.
You kidding me? I'll be too. I won't be able to get a nap in because I don't need my beauty sleep.
You got all the juice.
Look at this gym. Look at this absolute masterpiece of man here. But no, I'll be too jacked up. I'll be too amped up to sleep for a Thursday night game that means so much, like we talked about. So I'll be, as soon as I'm up, I'll be up, and it'll be a late night tomorrow night. But hopefully it's one that's worth staying up for, and hopefully the Colts get a win. Well, can't wait to join you in the booth. I'll probably be 3 venti coffees in by that point. So. So you're gonna bring the juice. I am bringing the juice. You always bring the juice. Thanks to all of you for your fantastic questions on a special Wednesday edition of Horseshoe FAQ. For the voice of the Colts, Matt Taylor, I am Larra Overton. Hey, have a great Veterans Day. A special thank you to all of those who have served and are serving our country on this very special Veterans Day. And we will see you all tomorrow night for Thursday Night Football, Colts at Titans.